Okay, so we're back the next day, and we're still waiting on the Floyd Rose to show up. So I figured today what we can do is we could talk a little bit about the neck for the guitar. So in the last installment, the last journal, I was showing you a neck that was pre-done, that had already that sort of Ernie Ball, or it's really a Paul Unkert curve, recurve, or rather a carve on it. So I figured we'd sort of go about showing you how you can go about doing that sort of a woodworking to a neck that you've got. So what I've got here is a sort of a neck that I think we're going to use this one now. We're not going to use this paint that's on the neck right now. We're going to strip that off to match the paint that we're going to use on the body. But the headstock, as you can see, is already cut out to be of the, you know, that banana Unkert shape. But the neck itself is also, again, an all parts paddle head that has been, you know, glued up with another piece of wood to extend out this way to accommodate for the shape of the headstock. It's already had the Floyd shelf cut and drilled out for an R2. It's had some lacquer applied to it in places and some of the basic relic working done on it. I started somewhere with shaping the neck a little bit, but it's not really where I need to be right now. It's not really done yet. So I figured what we can do is we can sort of show you how to do, you know, the carve on the back of the neck to get something that's comfortable to your hands. Okay, so to do that, well, first you got to figure out, like, what shape do you want the neck? So what I decided on was I have an Ernie Ball guitar that's a Music Man Van Halen model, and that neck is supposedly a dead nuts, you know, computer generated carve of the 5150 neck. So what I figured, that's about as close as I'm going to get. Now Unkert, Paul Unkert from Kramer, did the original carve on that neck, and he actually has some templates that you can use, but I figured I'd make it off of my template. So in order to make the template for the neck carve, basically you want to sort of have a shape or something that you can use to determine how close you are to that curve itself. So what you want to do, first of all, is get yourself something maybe like this. And this you could get at like woodworking shops. And it's sort of a tracer, a curved tracer, and it's a rigid piece of sort of semi-rigid piece of plastic filled with, I don't know, something that's sort of flexible and has some memory to it that you can use for copying curves. So you would take, like, let's say your Ernie Ball neck, and you would place this on the first fret. You would kind of wrap it around it, pressing it all the way around to get it into the shape of that curve. You'd then remove it from the guitar, from the neck, and there you would have sort of the shape of the neck. You would then trace it onto a piece of cardboard with a pen, and then cut that piece of cardboard out. And what you would end up with is something like this. Now this is the one that I'm going to use to cut, to carve this neck on the back to this shape. And as you can see, let's see if we can get this in there. You can see that the neck is still flat and it's not been quite shaped to what we need right there. So this is for the first. I said do one at the 12th too. Here's our one for the 12th. And you can actually see on this that there's an asymmetry to it. And it's very easy to see when you lay it out and when you draw it out and you trace it, that asymmetry. When you're looking at it like this, trying to sight it down the line, there's a lot of things blocking your real vision, and it's really difficult to kind of figure out. But as you can see too, this has some work to go to get it down and get it rounder. We've got it basically to the thickness we want all the way down, but now it needs to be rounded, right? So that's what we're going to show, that's what we're going to do here today, is do some of the rounding. Now the best way I've found to do this, and there's a lot of ways that you can use, a lot of things you can use. You can use, you know, files, rasps, draw knives, cabinet scrapers, you know, a sanding drum, sanding stations, belt sanders. There's a million things that you can use to kind of get the material hogged off. But when you get down to it, what's, for me, the easiest way to kind of really get a round curve is something that I picked up, and I can't claim that I have thought of this myself, and I should give credit where credit is due for it. First, let me clamp this neck down to the table so I can kind of show you what I'm going to do here. So we got, again, the cork, and we're clamping it down. So what I would have to say is person that sort of showed me how to do this is a repair guy, a restoration guy, a builder, and a music store owner in Pennsylvania, Greg Platzer at BCR Music. And Greg is the man when it comes to, you know, restoring old vintage guitars or fixing things that seem unfixable. I mean, I think he could do a credible, an absolutely credible restoration of a guitar you threw through a wood chipper. I think you'd get it back and be like, oh, looks like nothing ever happened. But anyway, what he always said is a good way of doing things is take something like a belt from a belt sander, right? This would be like a belt of a belt sander that you could get at the Home Depot or whatever. Cut it in half. You have a belt now. And then let me bring this camera down a little bit at an angle here so you can get more of the neck in. Then what you want to do, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know this, but for those that you don't, this is a good tip. You kind of stretch it over the neck like this, and you can work it back and forth. Now you can see if I go ahead and bring the camera down even further, which I'm going to do to show you, bringing it down onto the neck now. As you can see, it's sort of taken away wood everywhere but like in here, because that's the flat part. So it's not touching there. It's really touching over here and over here. So that is going to really round this whole neck off. All right? And that's going to give you a very comfortable shape and a radius to it that's consistent. It's not going to have any ridges or bumps in it. Like if you were cutting along the longitudinal axis of the neck, you would have a tendency to create furrows that we would then need to sand, and you might have flat spots. With something like this, you're not going to have a flat spot. All right, so we've got that as the way that we're going to sort of shape this neck. And I've got 40 grit to start off with, and this will really kind of, you know, remove a lot of material quicker. Okay, very, very coarse. From 40 grit, we could go to the bigger belt here, which is an 80 grit. From 80 grit, then you can start working up into like 100 grit. And this is another Platzer trick. Okay, this is another Greg trick that he I think he showed it online or whatever. He never showed me this personally, but I got to give Greg credit for it. What you do is you get your sandpaper, any kind of sandpaper, doesn't matter. Paper, sandpaper is fine, and some duct tape. And what you do is you duct tape the crap out of the back of the sandpaper, right? And that strengthens it to where it's not going to tear anymore. And you can once again bear down on it, and you can go ahead and get yourself your 100 grit belt right there. So it's sort of like a homemade belt using duct tape. So as usual, there's always a reason to have duct tape. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start shaping this neck. I'm going to change the camera angle and sort of give you a better shot of how this is all working and less of me. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so we've got a good overhead shot here. I've got the 40 grit belt, and this is sort of how we're doing it. As you can see, it's really doing a pretty good job of moving a lot of material pretty quickly. This will wear out your arms, so take some breaks, and if you want to too, you can kind of brace the neck from flopping around more by wedging it and sort of into your side, and then go ahead and bear down on it. Okay, and then basically I'm going to go at this for a while longer here. But you want to know, how do you know when you're done? You basically know you're done when two things happen. Number one, your little form here kind of slides on easily. And number two, you can see that you've removed material from the whole neck. and that'll indicate that you've rounded it off nice and comfortably. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just keep chopping away at this, and I'll see you later. Okay, so we're back, and I've been working on this neck with the 40 grit for about 15-20 minutes, periodically checking it with our little guides here, placing them on first fret at the 12th fret, and we're pretty much there in terms of rough shape. So the next step is going to kind of be to smooth out the neck in terms of all the scratches that the 40 grit puts in there. So basically you're going to want to go up from 40 to 80 to 120 and continue with the same sort of motion. The other little tip would be in this area here, this transition area near the heel. You'll find that when you do the overhead sort of motion to sand away the material, that you might get some digs here from the edge of the paper as it kind of cuts in to that portion that's raised. And what I like to do about that is I've got another sort of similar thing right here, which is some 80 grit, which has some tape on the back again. In this case it's gaff tape, but same difference. You can use duct tape, gaff tape, whatever you got. And that creates a nice sort of flexible little strip here that you can use that can really get into the area right here, and it's very flexible and stretches a little bit. So it'll adhere to those contours and create a really nice transition for you in that area. Remove all those scratches, and then you can kind of work it up to a nice V in this area here. So I think that's a good tip right there. So also, when you get past like with the 120 grit, sort of using the overhead motion, you can stop doing that and then go ahead and do to sanding with the grain as opposed to across it. And that's obviously a better way of doing things. You might even do with, start with 120 and doing sanding with the grain to get out all your scratches, to create a nice smooth feel, and then you can go up to the grit that you prefer. Some people stop at 220, other people will go a lot further. I've been known to go, above 800 and really kind of burnish the wood to get a nice sort of almost, petrified feel to the neck. But that's all up to you and how you like it to feel. Also, in terms of the finish on the neck, what do you want to put on there? Some people like to put on, nothing. Some people put on some true oil. Some people will put, wax in true oil. Some people put wax. The thing I like to do, and maybe it's a little bit weird, maybe it's a little gross, I don't know, but I keep the neck sort of handy off the guitar, and then I rub my hands through my fingers, rub my fingers through my hair, especially in the morning when you've woken up and you get a lot of good sort of natural oils, and then just every day just rub that into the back, a little on the hair, a little bit on the fretboard. I don't think I'm the only person that does this. By the way, you might think it's gross or whatever, but I'm not the only person that does it, and I think natural oil kind of gives it a really nice feel. I've even heard some people using chicken fat, but I'm not going to go there. I am not going there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going on this and keep sanding, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.